Your accident and injury guy, Attorney Bowers, right here in my Elkton office. I am checking sound because something weird made it look like I might have been on mute there. So, yeah, if you didn't hear the lead in because I might have been muted and I'm not sure, today we're going to talk about carpools. We're going to talk about accidents that happen in carpools. This question comes from one of our frequent watchers. Got this message after a stream a couple weeks ago. If you get in a carpool and you get in an accident, who pays your medical bills? Laurie, Ted, thank you so much for submitting this. This is a great question. This is a question that can sometimes confuse people, and it can be fairly complicated because there are multiple different ways in which this may all work out as far as who pays what. I'm going to go through the order of operations here in a relatively simple fashion because there can be situations in which it could potentially be even more complicated than what I'm going to describe today. But I'm going to go through the most common scenario with you, and we'll take it from there. If you are dealing with a situation like this, where there are potentially multiple insurance companies involved, including some that may not have even been part of the accident, it's super important to hire somebody like us at Bowers Law that actually knows what we're doing, navigating the complexities of situations like this. So let's get into the example here. You are a passenger in a carpool. Let's say it's a work-related carpool, but it doesn't have to be a work-related carpool. You could have a group of people getting together to go to a baseball game or a football game or a hockey game or to a concert or any other number of different scenarios. But we're going to talk about this from a perspective where if it's a work carpool, it's not organized by the employer. It's just a bunch of coworkers that decided that, hey, we all work at this place and we live in this area and we're going to not directed by the employer, because if it's employer directed or if it's employer sponsored or set up in any way, it could get even more complicated with potential workers' comp implications. And we don't want to talk about that here today. We're just talking about a pure auto accident situation. A bunch of us grouped together. You're going to a baseball game in Baltimore or Philly, and a group of people here in Cecil County get together. You are a passenger in somebody else's vehicle. You get in the car, you've met at a local kind of location, dropped off cars, probably one of the parking lots around here for one of the big box stores. Everybody gets in, we'll call them the host, into the host vehicle. And you start driving up 95, down 95, depending on where you're going. Let's say you get stopped in traffic and then boom, somebody hits you from behind. So here comes the question. Who's paying for what? You're a passenger in somebody else's vehicle. Now there's two layers to what's going on here. Multiple layers, but two different sources of where money is coming from a directional standpoint. Something that we've talked about many, many times in many, many episodes is the at-fault driver. In this situation, the vehicle that rear-ended the host vehicle, the one that you're a passenger in, is the liability carrier. They're at fault. It sounds like from this scenario, you're stopped in traffic, you get rear-ended. It's pretty black and white. Doesn't make it a simple situation, but it's pretty black and white. If that person's at fault, their insurance company becomes primary on paying out the liability claim. So that's going to be handled like any other case until and if there is a situation where that at-fault driver does not have sufficient insurance to cover everybody in the carpool vehicle. We're going to kind of gloss over that for today. That's a totally different topic. I want to talk about the people inside that carpool vehicle, what coverages from the carpool vehicle and what coverages beyond the carpool vehicle might apply. So you're in that host vehicle, the carpool vehicle. That vehicle is going to have some degree of personal injury protection coverage. We've talked about this on the podcast on multiple episodes. And even when we've talked about waiving personal injury protection coverage, excuse me, and my apologies, live podcast, what can you do? And with all the mute stuff, I don't even know where the mute button might be for that. So my apologies. You can waive personal injury protection coverage for yourself and people who live in your household. But as we've talked about on previous episodes, this is the scenario that introduces why you're still paying a premium if you choose to waive that coverage, which reiterates my position of don't waive the coverage. Because if you have somebody in your vehicle that's not a member of your household, you cannot waive personal injury protection coverage in Maryland for those passengers. So you, as the guest, as a passenger in a host vehicle, you're going to get PIP coverage. But here's the kicker. Circling back to that nasty PIP waiver that I always advise against, the insurance company for the host vehicle is going to ask you for proof, usually in the form of your declarations page from your personal household vehicle policy, not to make a claim, but to prove that you didn't waive PIP. Because if you waive PIP on your home vehicle, that PIP waiver follows you. So here is a second reason in one episode why that PIP waiver and not waiving PIP in Maryland is so important. Because if you waive PIP and then you're a passenger in a carpool vehicle, they could have the best insurance coverage in the world and have that personal injury protection coverage maxed out, the full $10,000, and you will get zero. So if our office or if the insurance company, and you should be dealing with an office like ours, we will help navigate this. If we're asking you, hey, we need to talk to your insurance company, we need to get proof of insurance, rest assured we're not making a claim with your company. We're just proving that you haven't waived the coverage. So the primary PIP coverage is going to come from the host vehicle. Now, we're going to make it a little bit more complicated. Let's say that you are like me, or like that scenario I just described with that maxed out coverage. You have the full maximum $10,000 in personal injury protection coverage. It's the most that an insurance company can sell you here in the state of Maryland as of the time of this recording. And quite frankly, no signs in the future that that's going to change. That is not something that the legislature has been trying to modify, not that's been on my radar. So I have the $10,000 in personal injury protection coverage. I am a passenger in a carpool in a vehicle that's in this scenario and they get in an accident. They have the standard $2,500 in personal injury protection coverage. Now, if I'm injured badly enough, which doesn't take much in this day and age, because just your trip to the emergency room is likely going to be at, around, or exceeding the $2,500 worth of PIP coverage. Let's say that we exceed that, easy to do. Once that PIP coverage for the host vehicle has paid out, maxed out their coverage for me. Now, it doesn't have to be for all the other passengers in the vehicle, and each eligible passenger can get up to that $2,500 in PIP coverage. So if you had a van that had 15 passengers in it, and we're in this accident that I just described, each of those 15 passengers, assuming they haven't waived PIP on their own policy, could be eligible for up to $2,500 in payment each. So it's not one pot that everybody's kind of grabbing at and who can get their medical bills in there first. It's per person. But then when that is exhausted, I can then, in a no fault, no penalty, no negative impact on my insurance rates, open up what's called an excess coverage claim with my own insurance company. Yes, my insurance company. My car wasn't even part of this accident, but my insurance policy that follows me and protects me if the insurance, the PIP insurance for the vehicle that I'm in this carpool scenario, isn't enough to cover my medical bills, and I have more coverage on my policy, which I do in this scenario, I can then open up that claim and get an additional, in this case would be $7,500. Now, nobody, as I've said before, nobody's going to just send you a check for that $7,500. There have to be medical bills or wage loss or something to substantiate that. So if you have $10,000 in PIP and $9,000 in medical bills, you're only going to get that payment toward the $9,000 in medical bills. Nobody's going to cash you out on that last $1,000. It's not how it works. It's a pool of coverage to be used in the situation. So that's the roundabout and the somewhat direct on how the insurance works if you're in a carpool. So it's super important, as it always is, to make sure that you're taking a look at your own insurance policy. Make sure you're not waiving that PIP coverage, because if you're waiving it on your policy, you're waiving it on every vehicle in the state of Maryland that you're driving it. So, and you're paying to do it. As we've broken it down on episodes in the past, you're paying to waive PIP coverage because you could have a passenger in your vehicle and you can't waive it for them. So super important. If you have questions about this, don't hesitate. Reach out to my office. We still do the free insurance reviews. If you have a question, hey, did I waive PIP here? It can be that simple. I'm happy to turn it around absolutely free and say, yep, looks like you waived PIP, or no, you didn't, and really kind of give you the blueprint of this is what you're looking at and why. A lot of this stuff has been covered on previous episodes. I'm starting to get questions of, hey, how do I find those old episodes? You can find them on YouTube, but you can also go to my website, bowerslawmd.com. Right up in that top bar where the arrow is, see where it says podcast? You click on that, it's going to give you a whole long list. I think you can even search that list. If you have questions about a specific episode, you can go find it in there in the archives. As always, and as Laurie and Ted have done this week, if you have something that you want me to mention on the podcast, and thank you for that. I exist in this world where I see what I see and I deal with what I deal with. So having a scenario that, sure, I've dealt with for clients in the past, but it wasn't top of mind to talk about it, super valuable, super important. So keep those recommendations coming. You can email them to me, info@bowerslawmd.com. If you are connected to me on Facebook, you're probably watching this on a Facebook stream. Just do like Laurie did and shoot a message in there, just right into the channel. It should give you the ability, like Laurie did, to message me. I'm going to address it. I'm going to bring it on the podcast. I'm going to ask you for your permission to name drop you like I did with Laurie. I didn't just unilaterally be like, hey, look, here's a text message I got from somebody. I asked, I got her consent. She's okay with me putting that out there, so I did. If you want to be completely anonymous and just ask the question, just let me know. I'm happy to keep you anonymous in any sort of way. So, like I said before, if you have questions, we do this every Monday, 10 a.m., with exceptions for holidays and the such. info@bowerslawmd.com. If you need help with an accident, with an injury, with any of these scenarios like we've talked about on the podcast, give my office a call right here, 885-6200. If you're searching around on that website for my podcast, the phone number's right there beside where it says podcast, or you can click where it says start for free and get an absolutely free evaluation and consultation for your case. No obligation to sign with us. You can also initiate the process for that insurance policy review right there as well. So without further ado, that's all I've got for you this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Maybe you're catching this on a replay. Either way, feel free to reach out with questions. We'll see you next week right here at the same place. Be well. Be safe out there.